Imagine a season that actively tries to kill you.
Right.
Like, it literally forces you into solitary confinement. It strips away all the foliage. It drastically reduces your exposure to sunlight. And, the temperature drops to a point where human survival without artificial shelter is basically impossible.
Oh, biologically impossible. Yeah, absolutely.
And yet, despite all of that sheer environmental hostility, millions of people describe this exact season as gentle or peaceful.
It is kind of wild when you think about it.
So today we are diving into the ultimate psychological paradox, which is winter.
It really is a profound contradiction when you frame it that way. I mean, we don't tend to think of weather as an existential threat when we're, comfortably sitting inside.
Exactly. You're on the couch. It's fine.
Right. But winter is fundamentally defined by deprivation. It is literally the earth pulling back its resources. And yet, the human emotional response to that deprivation is incredibly rich and complex.
Which is exactly why we are jumping into this deep dive today. We have a fascinating piece of source material in front of us titled The Melancholy Beauty of Winter's Silence.
That's a great piece.
It really is. And specifically, we are zooming in on a section of the text called Why Winter Feels Lonely But Beautiful.
Yeah, that specific section is key.
Our mission here is to crack open this paradox. Like, why does a season built entirely around the absence of heat, light, green life, activity produce such incredibly potent, intensely mixed emotions?
Well, the source text doesn't shy away from that contradiction. It actually leads with it.
It really just puts it right out there.
Exactly. The text establishes right away that winter creates this profound dichotomy in the human experience. Like, on one hand, you have people who feel this intense, almost spiritual sense of peace during the colder months.
Totally.
But simultaneously and quite often, within the exact same person, on the exact same day, there is a deep structural sense of loneliness.
Which is so interesting.
Yeah, and it's not just a passing wave of sadness. It's an isolation that feels baked into the very architecture of the season.
Okay, let's unpack this, because holding those two opposing emotions, profound peace and deep loneliness at the exact same time is, well, it's a heavy psychological lift.
It really is a lot for the brain to process.
Right. So to figure out how our brains manage that, we really need to look at the specific emotional vocabulary the text uses.
The word choices in this text are very deliberate.
They are. The source points out something that feels counterintuitive, which is that people actually emotionally enjoy winter. And the text describes the feeling of the season using 4 very specific words.
Right.
It says winter is quiet, emotional, beautiful, and gentle.
What's fascinating here is that specific grouping of words. I really want to spend some time on them because they're doing a lot of heavy lifting.
Yeah, let's break them down.
So when you look closely at the words quiet and gentle, you start to see the psychological mechanics at play. Those 2 words act as a bridge.
A bridge between the extremes.
Exactly. Between the extremes of feeling lonely and feeling beautiful. Let's dissect the word quiet first.
Okay.
Because silence is incredibly fragile. On a psychological level, quietness can very easily tip over into a feeling of total isolation or even abandonment.
Like it just gets too quiet.
Right. And that tipping point is exactly where the lonely aspect of winter comes from. When the external world goes silent, the social noise stops, and you are suddenly left completely alone with your own internal monologue.
Which is terrifying for a lot of people. I mean, we spend most of the year actively avoiding that exact scenario.
Oh, absolutely. We use so many distractions to keep that silence away.
But this is where the text introduces the concept of gentleness, right?
Yes. The season is physically harsh in its temperature, we know that. But the feeling of it, the aesthetic experience of the snow falling, the muffling of sound, the stillness that is gentle.
It softens the blow.
Precisely. And it is precisely that psychological gentleness that catches the quietness before it falls into complete despair. It transforms a stark, isolating silence into something beautiful and peaceful.
That dynamic reminds me of a very specific, universal feeling.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Think about being the only person awake in a house really, really early in the morning. Let's say it's 4:00 a.m.
Okay, I can picture that.
You're sitting in the kitchen. It feels a little bit lonely.
Right.
You are entirely by yourself. The rest of the world is unconscious. The streets are dead.
Right. There's a definite emptiness to it.
But at the exact same time, it feels incredibly beautiful and peaceful, specifically because the demands of the world haven't started yet. Nobody needs anything from you. The silence is yours to own.
So I see where you're going with the 4:00 a.m. analogy. And it works on a surface level to describe the isolation. But I actually think it misses a key element of the text's argument.
Oh, really? How so?
Well, at 4 a.m., your brain is operating on anticipation. You know the sun is coming up. You know the alarm clocks are going to go off.
I see.
You are existing in a temporary pocket of time before the action starts. Winter, according to the source material, isn't about anticipation.
It's a different kind of quiet.
Exactly. It's about suspension. It's a much deeper stasis. The text uses the word gentle because winter doesn't feel like a countdown to a busy day. It feels like an indefinite pause.
Oh, wow. That is a really crucial distinction. It's not the pause before the race. It's like the race has actually been called off due to snow.
That's a great way to put it. Both scenarios represent a suspension of normal demands, but winter's suspension is geographical, and it's prolonged.
It stretches out for months.
Right. And what the text is suggesting by calling winter emotional is that this prolonged suspension allows our baseline emotions to finally surface.
Because we're not so busy reacting to everything else.
Exactly. Think about how much cognitive bandwidth we spend during the other seasons just reacting. We are distracted by the noise, the heat, the social obligations, the frenetic outdoor activity of summer.
There is so much pressure to just be out doing things in the summer.
Yes. And winter strips all of those external distractions away, freeing up massive amounts of cognitive processing power.
And, I mean, nature abhors a vacuum, right? If your brain isn't processing the sound of lawnmowers or figuring out how to navigate a crowded beach or regulating your body temperature in a heat wave, it turns all that freed up processing power inward.
It has nowhere else to go.
Right. It leaves you with, well, you. Which totally explains the text's assertion that people might actually enjoy feeling emotional in winter.
Because it's a relief, in a way.
Yeah, we so rarely get the space to just sit and feel our feelings without having to instantly react to an external stimulus. Winter is essentially a massive planet-mandated permission slip to just be emotional.
I love that phrase. It is a forced reset. But this massive emotional shift into quiet introspection doesn't just happen by magic.
No, there's a physical reality to it.
Exactly. It is deeply rooted in physiological realities. The text explicitly lays out the triggers for this psychological shift. It cites 3 very specific environmental factors.
Shorter days, colder weather, and less outdoor activity.
Yes. And the source states bluntly, these changes can affect emotions.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because I actually have a hard time accepting the text's premise right out of the gate here.
Oh, why that?
I want to push back a little on the idea that less outdoor activity automatically equals emotional peace or a beautiful gentleness.
Okay, that's fair.
Because for a lot of people, being trapped inside doesn't breed peace. It breeds cabin fever. It breeds restlessness and anxiety.
Sure.
We've all seen The Shining, you know? Being snowed in can literally drive the human mind up a wall. So how does the text reconcile this idea that being physically trapped leads to this beautiful, gentle melancholy?
It's a really fair critique. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, the distinction lies in the difference between involuntary captivity, which triggers that cabin fever panic response.
Right, the feeling of being trapped against your will.
Exactly. The difference between that and the text's framing of voluntary surrender to the season. The text isn't talking about being trapped in a blizzard against your will. It's talking about the physiological adjustment to a changing environment.
So it's about how we adapt.
Yes. We have to look at the mechanics of what shorter days, colder weather, and less outdoor activity actually achieve when they happen simultaneously.
The ultimate biological triple threat.
That's one way to put it, yeah. Let's break them down. First, the reduction of daylight physically alters our biological rhythms.
Right, the lack of sunlight literally changes our brain chemistry.
Exactly. It changes our melatonin production, signaling the brain to slow down. Second, the colder weather acts as a physical barrier.
Oh, that makes sense. Like in summer, the boundary between the inside of your home and the outside world is porous.
Yes, you leave windows open, you walk in and out freely.
But in winter, the cold makes that boundary absolute. The door is shut.
Right. And third, the reduction in outdoor activity is essentially a mild form of sensory deprivation.
Which brings us back to the cognitive bandwidth idea we were just talking about.
Precisely. When the external world dramatically reduces the amount of visual, auditory, and physical stimuli it gives you to interact with.
Because the landscape is just monochromatic snow.
Right. The animals are hibernating, the humans are indoors, so your internal emotional world gets much, much louder. The volume of the outside environment drops to a 2, so the volume of your internal thoughts automatically cranks up to an 8.
Wow. Think about the visceral bodily feeling of the sun setting at, say, 4:30 in the afternoon.
Oh, it's so jarring.
It is. It's pitch black before you even leave work. When that happens, there's this instantaneous, almost cellular shift in your brain.
You feel it in your bones.
Yeah, the physical reality of the darkness just throws a switch. It shifts your mind's gear from productive outward action, which requires daylight, straight into introspective inward thought.
The day is just over.
Literally over. You can't go mow the lawn. You can't go for a vibrant, sunny hike. The environment has completely grounded you.
And being grounded forces a confrontation with the self, which is where that emotional intensity comes from.
Hopefully.
But the text doesn't just leave this as an abstract psychological theory, which I appreciate. What makes this source material so compelling is that it grounds these massive macro-level environmental concepts like planetary tilt, daylight reduction, temperature drops into a perfectly crystallized, highly specific micro-level example.
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about, the tea and blanket scenario.
It's such a great image.
The text provides this incredibly vivid, relatable tableau. It says, basically, someone watches the snow outside while sitting under a blanket with a cup of tea.
Simple but powerful.
Very. And the text notes that in this highly specific moment, the person feels lonely, but also peaceful.
We really need to dissect the mechanics of this scene because it perfectly encapsulates the intense interlocking contrasts we've been discussing.
Yeah, let's look at the elements.
You have the visual reality of the snow outside. Snow represents the cold. It represents a harsh, chaotic, and ultimately inhospitable, even lethal environment.
If you're out in it too long, yeah.
Right. But juxtaposed directly against that, separated by only a fraction of an inch of glass, you have the tactile, physical warmth and the profound safety of the blanket and the tea inside.
It's that extreme contrast.
Exactly. The text is illustrating that the emotion of winter, that melancholy beauty, is engineered exactly on the borderline between those two extremes.
I want you, the listener, to mentally put yourself in that exact scenario right now. Just picture it.
It's a very evocative image.
You're holding the warm mug, the heavy blanket is draped over your shoulders, and you're looking out through the window at the freezing air and the falling snow. It's an experience of, I guess I'd call it aesthetic confinement.
Oh, aesthetic confinement. I like that.
Yeah, it feels almost like being in a deep-sea submarine or a spaceship.
Because the outside is entirely hostile.
Exactly. You are looking out at a vast, beautiful, but entirely deadly environment. If you were out there in just your clothes, the environment would destroy you, but you are feeling entirely insulated from it.
You're safe.
So the question becomes, is the loneliness coming from the fact that you are physically separated from the rest of the world by a pane of glass? And does the peace come from the sheer primal gratitude of the warmth of the tea?
That concept of aesthetic confinement is really the key to unlocking the text's glossary. The source highlights specific words for us to pay attention to.
Right, words like winter, snow, cold, blanket, lonely, beautiful.
Yes. Notice how utterly interdependent these concepts are. They literally do not exist in isolation.
Right, because a blanket in July is meaningless.
Well, a blanket in July isn't just meaningless, it's oppressive. It's deeply uncomfortable. A heavy wool blanket only feels wonderful. It only provides that profound psychological sense of comfort and sanctuary because the cold exists outside.
The threat is what makes the safety feel so good.
Exactly. The external hostility is required to generate the internal comfort. Similarly, the text implies that the beauty of the snow is actually heightened by the slight, melancholy loneliness of watching it alone.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Right. If you were out in the snow with a dozen friends having a snowball fight, you would feel joy, you would feel excitement, but you wouldn't feel this specific brand of beautiful melancholy.
No, you'd just be having fun.
Yeah. The isolation is the lens that allows the beauty to resonate so deeply.
Contrast creates the value. You just cannot have the cozy without the freezing. You cannot have the peaceful safety without the chaotic snow.
They define each other.
It's like the physical environment of winter forces you to hyper-appreciate small comforts because they become literal tools for survival.
That's a really sharp observation.
I mean, think about it. A cup of hot tea on a random sunny Tuesday in May is just a beverage, but a cup of hot tea in January while a blizzard rages outside is a lifeline. It's an emotional anchor.
It grounds you completely in the present moment.
Right. But the text makes a really fascinating pivot here. It suggests that this feeling, this emotional anchor, isn't just about the physical reality happening right in front of us.
This is where it gets really deep.
Yeah. The tea and the blanket ground us in the present moment, sure, but our emotional reaction to winter is actually deeply, inextricably tied to the past.
Which brings us to arguably the most complex dimension of the source text. Under a section labeled Personal Reflections, the text deliberately lists 3 very specific things.
Okay, what are they?
Favorite winter memories, winter holidays, and cozy winter nights.
Those are very evocative phrases.
Very. And then it directly challenges the reader with 2 questions. Do you like winter? And why does winter feel emotional?
So what does this all mean? When the text turns those questions around on the reader, it kind of forces us to realize something massive.
It forces a lot of introspection.
Yeah. Is the reason winter feels so staggeringly emotional because the season is utterly saturated with nostalgia? Like, are we ever actually just experiencing the current winter, or are we experiencing every winter we've ever lived through all at the same time?
This raises an important question about how memory functions in quiet spaces. That is the forced psychological audit of the season.
A psychological audit, wow.
Think about the specific items the text lists. It deliberately contrasts the high sensory energy, the anticipation, and the communal gathering of winter holidays with the quiet, solitary isolation of cozy winter nights.
Right, those are 2 vastly different modes of human existence.
They really are. When the text points to favorite winter memories, it's showing us that human memory acts as a psychological projector.
Okay, a projector. Tell me more about that.
When you are sitting alone on a Tuesday in February, staring out at a blank white canvas of snow, you aren't just seeing today's meteorological event.
Right, the landscape is basically a blank screen.
Exactly. Because the external world is so static and white, your brain projects its archives right onto it. Emotionally, your nervous system is simultaneously experiencing the echoes of every childhood snow day, every chaotic family holiday dinner, and every solitary cozy night you have ever had.
That is profound. Memory essentially becomes an invisible companion in the room with you.
It does.
And that perfectly, flawlessly explains the core paradox of the text. It explains why you might feel physically lonely in the present moment, because you are empirically, physically alone on the couch. But you simultaneously feel profoundly peaceful and beautiful.
Because your mind is full.
Exactly. Because your psychological space is entirely populated by these warm, glowing personal reflections. The ghosts of winter's past are literally keeping you company.
I think we have to be careful not to romanticize that invisible companion too much, though.
Oh, what do you mean?
Well, because nostalgia isn't always warm and glowing. The text says winter feels emotional and lonely. We have to acknowledge that part of that profound melancholy is because the memories we project onto the snow might be of people who aren't in our lives anymore.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's heavy.
The holidays emphasize who's gathered around the table, right?
Yeah.
Which means the cozy, isolated nights of late winter aggressively emphasize who is missing.
The silence makes the absence so much louder.
Exactly. That is why the beauty is inherently melancholy. The quietness clears the stage, so that all our memories, both the joyful ones and the painful ones, can step forward and be seen.
That is such a vital point. The blank canvas of winter doesn't discriminate between happy memories and grief. It just forces you to look at whatever is in your head.
You can't hide from it.
Which is such a massive contrast to the psychology of the rest of the year, if you think about it. In the spring and summer, human behavior is so outward and future-facing.
Very much so.
You know, you're planning vacations, you're going to events, you're making new connections, you're planting seeds, literally and metaphorically. Summer is all about forward momentum.
It's all about what's next.
Right. But winter is internal and past-facing. You're physically trapped inside, wrapped in a blanket to survive the temperature, so of course your brain is going to flip through the mental scrapbook. There's nowhere else for it to go.
Exactly. The outward momentum is completely halted by the environment.
It's a full stop.
And this beautiful, highly complex collision, the forced reflection on past memories, the visceral physical warmth of the tea against the blanket, the lethal external reality of the cold, and the isolation of the quiet, it all funnels down into what the text calls a gentle conclusion.
A gentle conclusion. I love how this source structures its ideas.
It's very elegant. It offers a singular unifying theory for the true purpose of the season.
And that conclusion is remarkably profound in its simplicity. The source literally just states winter sometimes feels quiet because it asks us to slow down.
The operative word there being asks.
Yes. It asks us, it doesn't force us. Well, I mean, the weather certainly tries to force us, but the psychological element is an invitation.
It's a choice we have to make internally.
Exactly. When we pull all the threads of this deep dive together, the reduction of daylight altering our biology, the stark white snow dampening the acoustics of the world, the heavy blankets creating that aesthetic confinement, the sudden rush of inescapable nostalgia, we start to see something amazing.
It's not just a series of accidents.
No. We start to see that these aren't just random, disconnected environmental occurrences. They are, exactly as the text suggests, an active, coordinated request from the season itself.
It's almost like the Earth is communicating with us.
Yes. Winter meticulously engineers a quiet, restrictive environment specifically to enforce rest.
It was a biological imperative disguised as weather.
Wow, biological imperative disguised as weather. That's a great line.
Thanks. But it's true. Look at the natural world. The entire ecosystem goes dormant to survive the deprivation of winter.
Everything shuts down.
Trees stop growing leaves, animals hibernate, the soil freezes solid, and human beings, no matter how much technology we build, are ultimately part of that same ecosystem.
We pretend we're not, but we are.
We really do. We have built artificial LED lights and central heating systems to trick our bodies into pretending that we aren't subject to the seasons. But our foundational psychology still responds to the ancient, ancestral cues of the environment.
Our DNA remembers.
Exactly. The drop in temperature, the fading of the light, the absolute silence. These are deep environmental signals telling our nervous systems that the time for external output is over.
It's time to close up shop.
The time for internal conservation has arrived. The loneliness we feel isn't a punishment for being isolated. It is the necessary psychological space required for that conservation and reflection to actually take place.
So to you, listening to this right now, think about the next time you feel that sudden, heavy pang of winter loneliness creeping in.
Especially as the sun sets at like 4 in the afternoon.
Right, when it just hits you out of nowhere. Maybe the goal isn't to immediately fight it.
Stop resisting it.
Yeah, maybe you don't need to instantly reach for your phone to distract yourself or turn on every single light in the house or feel guilty for feeling a little melancholic and unproductive.
Let yourself off the hook.
Recognize that feeling for what it actually is, based on this text. It is the physical world giving you explicit biological permission to just stop.
Just pause.
Get the blanket, make the tea, look out the window at the inhospitable cold, and just be quiet with your invisible companions for a little while.
It is entirely about accepting the invitation of the season, rather than violently resisting it.
Surrendering to it.
The melancholy beauty of winter reveals itself only when we finally surrender to its pace. If you fight the stasis, you just get the loneliness without the beauty.
That is so true. If you fight it, you're just lonely in the dark. Which leaves me with one final lingering thought for this deep dive.
Okay, let's hear it.
A question that builds right on top of this text's gentle conclusion. If winter feels quiet specifically because it asks us to slow down, does our modern society's absolute stubborn refusal to stop working, producing, and moving explain why so many people struggle with this season so deeply?
Oh, that is a fantastic question.
Right. We try to maintain summer-level productivity in the dead of January, running our engines hot when the environment is telling us to power down.
We're constantly fighting the current.
If we actually listened to winter's request to slow down, would the crushing weight of that loneliness completely disappear, leaving only the beauty?
It completely reframes how we experience the next few months.
It really does. Maybe the reason the emotional experience of winter feels so murky, so full of tension and pain, isn't because the season is broken or hostile. Maybe it's because the season is begging us to rest, and we are the ones simply refusing to listen.
That's incredibly powerful.
Just something to think about the next time you watch the snowfall.